Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport. Everything is highly engineered. It attracts the best personnel in the world, and we have the best drivers in the world competing in the sport, but with tyres exploding, being inconsistent, and having to be handled like a porcelain cup, it's time to talk about the problem called Pirelli. Formula One has had many tyre manufacturers over the years. A lot of them have been on your own car actually, with Dunlop, Firestone and Continental as examples. But if we fast forward to more recent years, we've seen Bridgestone and Michelin, followed by Pirelli since 2011. In 1997, Bridgestone joined Goodyear as a tyre manufacturer, which caused a war between the two. With Bridgestone winning, they became the sole supplier for 2 seasons. In 1998, they introduced grooved tyres as demanded by the FIA regulations. They wanted to slow the cars down. Slick tyres provided the most grip and were therefore banned until 2008. Personally, I liked how the grooved tyres looked. They had something special, well, at least in my eyes. 2001 marked the start of another tyre war when Michelin entered Formula One. Both manufacturers were brutal in their development, investing heavily in research and development. This resulted in frequent compound and construction changes. They worked closely with the teams they supplied to gain a competitive advantage. Michelin tyres were better in hot conditions and warmed up quickly, while Bridgestone offered better consistency over a long run and had better durability. This impacted car design, qualifying and race strategies. But in 2005, things went wrong. Formula One, they decided to ban tyre changes. The set you qualified on? Well, that was the set that you'd have to race on and needed to finish with, unless damaged. We got harder tyres that were more durable, but both manufacturers struggled with this. At the 2005 US Grand Prix in Indianapolis, Michelin had multiple tyre failures. Their tyres, they just couldn't handle the banking, and they withdrew from the Grand Prix, leaving only 3 teams using Bridgestone tyres to complete the race. I remember this race vividly, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. It damaged F1's reputation in the US and ended the tyre war. After the 2006 season, Bridgestone, well, they became the sole supplier again. Between 2007 and 2010, we saw the developments that are still in Formula One now, such as more tyre compounds, mandatory use of 2 compounds during races, and colour coding. In 2011, Pirelli took over after Bridgestone announced they would stop. With Pirelli's announcement came a promise: tyres that degrade more rapidly to promote varied strategies. With Pirelli, we entered a new era of tyres, an era that is controversial, and I'm not sure if I like it. Tyre degradation became a focal point. I understand it can promote various strategies, but there's a lot of criticism from drivers and teams. The tyres degrade too fast, impacting the ability to push hard throughout races. We've seen multiple high-speed tyre failures too. After the 2013 Grand Prix, with 6 tyre failures, multiple safety concerns were raised. Pirelli changed the tyre construction twice mid-season, but it wasn't Pirelli's fault, at least according to them. The explosions were due to incorrect use by the teams, running lower pressures or fitting the tyres on the wrong side of the cars. Yet, teams did fit them differently due to the high degradation, and the cars also had too much camber, and the curbstones contributed to the problem. But it happened again in 2015. Nico Rosberg and Sebastian Vettel experienced high-speed tyre explosions at Spa-Francorchamps, raising safety concerns once again. But of course, it wasn't Pirelli's fault. It was debris on the track. The answer frustrated drivers and teams. In 2016, we got new tyre rules, and in 2017, wider tyres were introduced. These tyres responded to new regulations and increased speed throughout corners, aiming to improve performance, grip, and aesthetics. With Pirelli, we also got the famous colours on the side of the tyres. While we started with 4 compounds, this went up to 7 dry tyre compounds and a full rainbow of colours in 2018. This confused many fans of the sport, and honestly, it was ridiculous if you ask me. In 2019, they reversed this, going back to 5 compounds and using just 3 colours that we're used to nowadays: white, yellow, and red. But the controversies, well, they didn't go away. In 2021, Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen crashed on the main straight at Baku, crashes that could have been fatal. I think you know what I'm about to say. But again, of course, it wasn't Pirelli's fault. They investigated the tyres and blamed debris on the track. They found a cut in Lewis Hamilton's tyre, suggesting that there were no production or quality defects, and the teams had used the tyres correctly. So, do they just explode randomly? Great. They introduced new safety protocols and measurements, but once again, there was skepticism from drivers and teams. Max Verstappen said he would talk to Pirelli, but he knew the answer already. It will be related to the debris. Drivers didn't trust them, and I totally back that. Let's fast forward to the tyre situation today, and the main problems. Currently, we have 18-inch tyres. These do align more with the road technology and aesthetics, and were supposed to improve car handling and reduce aerodynamic turbulence. Yes, I said supposed to. I don't think we achieved that though, and I'm not sure if we ever will. It sounds pessimistic, I know, but that's the state that we're currently in. The tyres are inconsistent, performance varies between the same compounds, and they have an almost non-existent operating window. Every circuit is different, the tarmac changes, and temperatures vary. This affects the tyres, which is understandable. But what isn't understandable is how inconsistent Pirelli tyres are in handling these situations. If the teams put on a soft tyre, it behaves a certain way. When they switch to a medium, they expect it to be slower. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes a medium is faster than a soft, or worse, the hard tyre is faster. To make matters worse, this varies between sets. During free practice, teams test all the compounds to understand how the car behaves, how the degradation is, and which tyre is best for their strategies. You'd think they could rely on one testing session, because a hard tyre is a hard tyre. But in reality, they can't. The performance of each set fluctuates too much, making it hard to rely on them. No wonder drivers and teams don't trust Pirelli. Degradation is influenced by various factors, such as car setup, driving style, or overtaking, but it's also affected by dirty air and Pirelli's poor tyre construction. In 2023, we had an example of this at the Qatar Grand Prix. Safety concerns arose after free practice when they saw the sidewalls of the tyres separating. It was due to the pyramid curbs at the circuit. Sure, these curbs don't belong in the sport, I know. But isn't it Pirelli's job to make tyres that can handle every circuit? Well, apparently not, because once again, it's not their fault. Then we have the opening window. If there even is one, the drivers have to do a gentle introduction. They can't go flat out immediately, and they have to manage them all race long. If they don't bring the tyres up to the right temperature, they don't get the performance they need. I agree that it is a driver's task to manage tyres well, and it's the team's task to develop a car that handles the tyres well. But it's Pirelli's task to make tyres that can get up to temperature, handle a small temperature range, and not suddenly give up because they get too hot. But that's not all. There is one thing I haven't mentioned: the full wet compound. Drivers would rather go out on intermediate tyres when they have to drive through a literal river than use the full wets. As far as I can remember, they've always been terrible. After Jules Bianchi's incident in Suzuka in 2014, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel criticised the full wet compound as unsuitable. We're now in 2024, and they still are. It's all due to the narrow operating window and Pirelli's inability to make good ones. Pirelli needs to change its mindset. They need to admit that they sometimes make bad tyres, and they need to address the fact that tyre performance fluctuates between the same compounds. It is on them to improve these problems and deliver what Formula One needs. Pirelli entered the sport with a promise. They said that tyres degrade more rapidly to promote varied strategies. How is it then that drivers can do 50 laps on a set of medium or hard tyres when the Grand Prix is only 70 laps? That's not degradation, that's endurance. And yes, I know I said they degraded too quickly at the beginning, but this can't be the solution. We must consider the need for sustainability. But wouldn't more pit stops improve the beloved entertainment of Formula One and Liberty Media? Especially in Monaco, I think it's needed. What if we ran the Grand Prix with only super soft tyres, making it a minimum 2-stop race? Drivers and teams would have to balance being quick with being good on tyres. Managing the tyres, it would still be part of the race, but less important than it is now. They could push more or take a conservative approach, stopping as the last person, like Michael Schumacher did back in the day. With Pirelli's monopoly on the sport, there is another problem. They can just blame everything and everyone when something happens with the tyres, without consequences. That's just not right. In 2026, we'll get new regulations and therefore new tyres. We'll keep the 18-inch wheels, but the tyres will be narrower to save weight. This is another Formula One problem. These smaller tyres, well, they're intended to increase overall drag. Pirelli wants to maintain the current tyre performance with these smaller ones, which is not something that I'd hope for, to be honest. They want to reduce overheating and improve durability, and I'm not totally in favour of improved durability. I'd rather have consistency between the same compounds. But the real problem here, it lies in the testing of these tyres. There is no 2026 mule car, which means they need to test the tyres on modified cars. These cars, well, they don't have the active aerodynamics, and they also have a different aerodynamic concept. Therefore, Pirelli has to rely heavily on simulations and data from the teams. I personally just hope they get it right, that we get tyres that solve all the problems I've mentioned. Will it ever be 100% perfect? No, of course not, that's a utopia. But we can hope for tyres that don't randomly fail, don't vary between the same compounds, and don't need to be handled like a porcelain cup. If that gets solved, I think we'll take a step in the right direction. Now that we're talking about problems, watch one of the videos on screen. I assure you that you'll like them.